Do you know what it takes to get promoted as a product designer? Well, I've been a designer for years, and this is something that I've always struggled with. That is until I found this book. So today I'm going to reveal the unique insights that this book can offer you in terms of career development, how this book can be useful to designers at all levels, and if you stay until the very end, I'll discuss how this book has impacted my career as a mid-level product designer working in Chicago. But first, let's talk about some of the problems with career development as a designer. Now, one of the first ideas that the book presents is a report from 2019 that found that 71% of companies are lacking any formalized career progression for their designers. The smaller the company is, the lower the chance that they'll have some form of a career ladder or a progression model in place. Now, what this means is that these organizations and the designers within them do not have a clear expectation about what they should do in order to advance. To add to this, there could be a couple other problems that you're experiencing, which will ultimately have a very large impact on your career. Now, the first and probably most common is that you might be in an organization that's lacking capable design leaders who are able to provide you adequate career guidance. The second thing that you might run into is that you might be a designer who's reporting to a non-designer because there's actually not enough of you to justify hiring a leader. Additionally, you might find in many organizations that PMs and designers have several shared competencies. This includes problem definition, research, as well as testing. So if you're in an organization that primarily delegates this work to a PM, then your impact as well as your influence is ultimately going to be minimized. And something that you really need to keep in mind is that the most important predictor of a designer's seniority is the size of their impact as well as how it benefits the organization. So if your company doesn't have clear expectations on how to evaluate your skills, as well as the impact of your work, your career will inevitably stall out. So now that we've outlined some of the problems that you may experience with your career as a designer, let's discuss how the book helps us overcome these hurdles. So to start off with, the book is broken up into 4 parts. The first part revolves around understanding the different career paths that are available to you as a designer, as well as understanding how to set your career goals. Now, as we just learned, most companies don't have a progression model in place for their designers. So it's really critical that you actually go through and understand the different career paths that are available to you, because it's ultimately going to serve as the foundation for your growth plan moving forward. I also highly recommend that designers of all levels go through the author's process when it comes to setting your goals, because his process is not purely career driven. It's based around your individual values as a person. And I think this is really critical when it comes to long-term fulfillment as a designer. Now let's move on to part 2 of the book, which outlines the competencies expected of designers at varying seniorities. Now, this might be the single most useful piece of content that the book provides for juniors or complete beginners, because it gives you the language to start talking about the skills you need to develop, as well as a method to assess yourself that will scale across companies. All large companies are going to be utilizing these competencies to some extent. And even if you work at a smaller company, you'll still be able to bring the competencies outlined in the book to your reviews to anchor your career development around. If you're a junior or a complete beginner, reviewing these competencies is going to be invaluable to you, because you'll be able to ask better questions on how to grow in these specific areas if you understand the language. You'll also be able to find books on these topics to utilize and grow. Now, if you're a mid-level or higher-level designer who has worked at a medium-sized company, you're probably already familiar with these competencies to some extent. In that case, you'll find parts 3 and parts 4 of this book to offer you more utility. Alright, so now let's move into part 3 of the book, which essentially provides a framework to utilize the aforementioned competencies to assess yourself and create a plan for growth. Now, as the book clearly states, this is ideally an activity that you should not do alone, so working with your manager here is highly recommended. And if you're able to set this up right by creating an actionable plan with goals, you should be able to make steady jumps in either promotions or compensation at each designated milestone. Now, in the off chance that you don't have an active manager or you're completely new to the field, you really need to find someone to help you accurately assess yourself. So I recommend you look on ADP List or look through the internet to find some other channels. Okay, so now we're moving into part 4 of the book, which is the longest and final portion. It takes up approximately half the available pages, and it gets into the specifics of each competency, as well as how you should go about developing it. Now, what I find unique about this part is that the author puts a lot of emphasis on high ROI activities for each competency that you can utilize to maximize your time spent. Additionally, scattered throughout the chapter are nuggets of gold when it comes to examples of showcasing these competencies at varying seniorities, learning strategies for self-taught designers, and frameworks that you can apply throughout your entire career development. So if you couldn't tell by now, I would highly recommend this book to designers at all levels. I only covered it at a high level, but that's only because I recommend that you buy it, as it will be an invaluable and actionable resource that you can utilize for years to come. Now for the final question to answer: how has this book affected me as a mid-level product designer working out of Chicago? Now, I will say generally that I think that this book has helped me understand the steps that I need to take in order to be successful, as well as understand the long-term path that I'm interested in pursuing as a designer. Whereas before, I was really trying to get good at everything all at once, and I did not have a long-term career goal in mind. Now, with that being said, there are some aspects that I've had some mixed results when it comes to implementing, which I'll highlight for you now. So let's start off by talking about part 3, which focuses on assessing your skills and building a plan for growth, ideally with your manager. Now, in practice, I have found that you may be able to create a growth plan with your manager, but I've been in so many situations where my manager doesn't actually have the call to give me a promotion or a raise. Even at companies that utilize these competencies and have established career progressions, build false promises when it comes to pay raises and promotions. I've been in so many situations where I've had to interview in different business units within the same company because my existing managers will make excuses. You will hear that the economy is bad, that the company is limiting raises, that HR hasn't approved the raise. They will try to frame it to you as if you're lucky to have a job in this current economy. So what you need to do is remember that a company's goal is to get the most work out of you while paying you as little as possible. So even if the book may not have given me the best success in this area, or at least given me a good perception of the true reality that I might experience, it stresses the importance of taking ownership of your career progression and looking for high ROI opportunities to grow. And realistically, these can be outside your company. Don't limit yourself to one company, because to them, you are expendable. The other big thing that the book touches on, which is all too true, is that in some companies, you will be reporting to a non-design superior. If this is the case for you, it becomes even harder to work on your career development. Your superior may not necessarily feel qualified to evaluate you, even with the resources that the book provides, and ultimately your career will stall out. I've been in several situations where my design manager will quit, and you'll be left reporting to either product or marketing. And what you'll find is that the company will make false promises when it comes to getting a new design leader in place in a timely manner, but all too often it will be years before that position is filled. So now let's move into a more positive note. One piece of gold that I found was within part 4, and it's learning strategies for self-taught designers. Now, as someone who is self-taught in all areas of design, I know how overwhelming it can be to learn all this information from scratch. It's difficult to know where to start and how concepts will connect to one another. There's also so much that you need to learn that's outside of design, such as product development, technology, and code. So realistically, it can be an uphill battle from the start. Now, I agree with the author's assessment in that you should be selective with what you read and the competencies that you look to develop. You should only really read something that you can take concepts from and apply immediately. Otherwise, you won't be able to retain the information. Applying knowledge will showcase your mastery or reveal areas that you need to work on. So, despite not being able to apply every single concept within the book, I still think it's useful and has a lot of utility to designers at all levels. It's helped me personally understand my values and that I want to pursue the business owner path as a designer. Now that that is clear, I'll be able to create a plan for growth and work towards this. But as the book suggests, all career paths start with becoming a senior product designer. So for now, that's my current goal. If you found this content helpful, a like and subscribe would mean a ton. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.